What a tragic and sullen week this has been with the passing of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, Gianna, and the 7 other victims who are involved in the helicopter crash this past Sunday in Calabasas, California. Personally, as a lifelong Laker fan, this has affected me a little bit more than I thought it would. But nonetheless, his passing, the helicopter crash itself, and the ensuing investigation has brought to light what the future of urban air mobility may hold. Stay tuned for this episode where we feature a Sikorsky representative, and Sikorsky was a helicopter that Kobe was flying in. Stay tuned on this episode as we hear more about the challenges of urban air mobility in the future of transportation. Welcome to Think It Through Thursday, where I share with you some problems that industry professionals have posed. In this particular episode, we hear from Jonathan Hartman, the Disruptive Technologies Lead at Sikorsky. Sikorsky is pioneering urban air mobility, and the helicopter that Kobe Bryant flew in was a Sikorsky Model S76B, which is an older model. Their latest model is the 76D, which you see here. Sikorsky understands these challenges of urban air mobility and the partnerships that need to be developed. Let's hear some more insight from Jonathan Hartman on the challenges that Sikorsky sees in the future of urban air mobility.
Humanity is undergoing the largest shift in its population density in history. The UN says about 2 million people per week are moving from rural areas to urban areas, and that's a trend that's going to continue for the next decade. That is putting significant pressure, as we all know, on ground infrastructure. Traffic is something we all understand, congestion is something we all understand. So opening up that third dimension for mobility and rapid mobility is something we're very passionate about. A lot of people like to say urban air mobility is a new term. It isn't. Helicopters have been moving people around cities for decades, and Sikorsky has been a part of that ever since the beginning. However, we do understand that current helicopters are affordable, not to the masses, and have an acoustic profile that doesn't make them acceptable to all communities. So there's a number of technologies that Sikorsky has been working on over the past decade, including our Matrix autonomy program, and some of the work I started early in my career with the Firefly all-electric helicopter demonstrator to show some of these enabling technologies for the vehicle. But you're not going to see a vehicle here today outside of the demonstration you saw. That's because we fundamentally believe that you have to start with a more holistic, systematic approach to this solution. So we're not selling any products, we're not going to have this app available for sale, I'm not selling any helicopters today. What we wanted to show, though, is in order for this new mode of transportation to be accessible to the population, we have to start breaking down the physical and psychological barriers between aviation and most people, right? If you're down on the street, you can stand within 3 inches of a car as it goes by, and there's people who are comfortable doing that. How do we make helicopters and vertical takeoff and landing vehicles more accessible? Well, the first step is making them more convenient, more places to land. So we'd love to be able in the future to land on a place like this garage.
In order to make helicopters and vertical takeoff and landing more feasible, it will require conversations that center around planning, permitting, and convenience. Now, I didn't mention safety only because the optimistic side of me believes that public agencies and private sector companies naturally gravitate towards policies and protocols that promote safety. But ultimately, how city planners and permit officials agree on urban air mobility in the wake of Kobe's death does put more pressure on companies like Sikorsky to produce a product that is more accessible, more convenient, that adheres to the standards of the public. What does that look like for Sikorsky? Well, that entails a helicopter that is quieter, more than likely electric, so that it checks the box for environmentally friendly, and it must also be conveniently accessible, which perhaps now includes these helipads on top of high-rise buildings. It was interesting to hear that an unusual partnership that is being formed is between Sikorsky and Otis Elevators. They announced this partnership at CoMotion LA 2019, and they're looking to provide this unified customer experience where if you are on the ground floor or perhaps wherever your office or condo is located in that high-rise building, that you can use a single app that takes you all the way to the very top floor, perhaps the roof, where the helipad is, and then you would onboard your helicopter, your proper mode of travel. Additionally, the aftermath of Kobe Bryant's death has exposed the protocols of the NTSB, the National Traffic Safety Board, where the NTSB is going to have to develop a set of guidelines and rules for the public to be aware of and to agree so that they would adhere to it. Because we certainly want to ensure that if a crash does happen in an urban city, that there is protections of the victims who have suffered in that loss to make sure that their next of kin is properly notified before all these rumors circulate. And we want to make sure that the wreckage site itself is protected so that there is a proper investigation that ensues so that we can ensure that this does not happen again. Urban air mobility will be a future mode of transportation. The ability for city planners and permit officials to work with private companies that offer a product will be the most challenging and the longest form of negotiation until this becomes a reality. Kobe's death, unfortunately, may not have helped these conversations. Or maybe it has. Maybe public officials and private sector companies do adopt the Mamba mentality and engage face-to-face and head-on with these issues that will solve urban air mobility travel. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Think It Through Thursday. Be sure you subscribe if you're liking this content and you want to hear more of these problems every Thursday. Also, stick around if you'd like to hear a small tribute to Kobe Bryant, the man, the myth, the Laker legend. Thank you.